Hello guys, and welcome to another highlights video. And today we're at Baku for round 1 of the PSGLxVRT event, and this was probably the most competitive field I've raced against on any F1 game so far, and it was probably one of my weakest tracks. Baku's never really done me the greatest pace qualifying wise over the last few years I've done Baku, but I've always had my head up high for the race, and I look at the race weather forecast right now. You see it gets to 45% rain precipitation at the end, or the 45-minute mark. So I was expecting it was probably going to rain, maybe just enough for inter tires after the race is finished. So I was pretty confident in the strategy, which I was planning for the soft to medium if I got into the top 10, and the alternate strategy the other way around. So we're going to come out on the mediums for the first run to save a set of softs just in case if we're in that situation for the alternate strategy. And it was a pretty good lap on the mediums, to be honest, a 39.1, which really surprised me because I hadn't done any qualifying practice, only time trial runs prior to this race. So we're going to, I think this is the fastest qualifying run of qualifying. So we got pretty decent turn 1, and we go into a pretty decent turn 2. It is quite a boring track, Baku. Only 90-degree corners pretty much throughout the entire thing. Only sector 2 really gets a bit interesting. But we go into turn 3, it's just about getting the braking zones right. Not hitting the inside curves, I had a bit of a wobble out of turn 3. Into 4 we hit the inside curb there, and we lost time to our medium run, at least a tenth. So this wasn't the perfect lap. And we hit the inside curb a little bit there, but we get a pretty decent exit going into turn 7. And we want to try and take as much as this inside curb as possible. Get that pretty nicely hooked up. Going through the castle section, we get that pretty good through there. And we didn't hit the inside curb out of castle, which wasn't great, but we got the second part of it right as we go down into probably the trickiest braking zone on the track, with a few cars moving out of the way on the in lap of out lap. I ain't going to take the jump curb there, and we come up to the final proper braking zone of the track, and we got our teammate Harry who's going to give us the tow down the straight, which in the end it gave us 2 tenths and put me into the 37s just about. And you see, got the maximum out of this down the entire straight. Unfortunately I couldn't get ahead of him before his lap because I was going to tow him along from the straight from turn 2 to 3, but in the end he didn't worry too much about that. But we go on to our final attempt of a flying run, and by attempt, there you go, invalidated and a terrible turn 1. In the end we get P9, with McKee getting pole, just about holding on ahead of Duncan and Will G. But we line up on the grid P9, pretty much everyone behind us on the old strat. I don't think anyone was on the hards, I think everyone was just behind on the mediums, but we got 5 lights coming on, and we get away pretty decently, get the jump on Kazizzle, and so we go side by side into turn 1 with Suku now, as he managed to get a jump on his teammate, and so we're going to carry on going side by side through turn 2 and up this straight. I'll try and keep the outside and hopefully use the corner into turn 3, which I'm going to go straight away, latest possible braking, get really close to the cars ahead. Midnight and Reese fighting ahead, but Suku keeps alongside us. He gets the outside line for turn 4 and into 5 and 6. He brakes very late, and yeah, I had to yield that corner myself there. And on the exit, Kazizzle gets the run. On the inside, I try and go as late as possible, but he had the inside line and I wasn't going to fight side by side into the castle. It was pretty much damage limitation there. But in the end we dropped down to P10, which put us at the back of the normal strat runners, but it wasn't too bad. But already on lap 2 we have drivers pitting. We have Will OG, I think it is. I think he must have picked up damage on lap 2 there. As we go on to the next lap, drivers are fighting the undercut already. There's Lars pitting on lap 3, trying to protect the undercut from Will OG, and we go on to lap 4. Another couple of cars pitting, Suku and Blizzard this time, protecting their positions from Lars's undercut. And we go on to lap 5, and 4 of the remaining top 6 come to the pits. I think Midnight, Kazizzle, McKee and Duncan are all into the pits there. But lap 6, this is the lap we pit, and I was hoping to try and get Reese before I pitted, because I thought he may have been pitting, but in the end he stayed out for one more lap. But we go into the pits, medium tyres. It was a pretty simple strategy to the end of the race, and as we come out behind Will OG just about. So the undercut wasn't very powerful from Kazizzle and Will OG. They were quite bogged down really. But as we move on to a couple of laps later, and they were fighting a little bit over the previous few laps, but I'd see the opportunity here. Absolutely using everything. Kazizzle wasn't attempting to make a move, so I had to try and get through myself. And I get through Kazizzle, I get through at Will OG. I'm taking the risky outside lines, but I want the racing line into turn 1. So we get that done. 4.5 seconds away from Midnight was ahead, and we catch up to Gil, who hasn't pitted. So most of these guys stayed out, haven't pitted. Some it paid off, some it didn't. But we're going to get past Gil, we're going to take the inside line. Just try and open up the outside for the entry to turn 1. As we do. 3.5 seconds away from Midnight now, and then we catch up to the train, which has been holding up these guys a bit. And we're going to make the move on Yoan on the longer line. He protected the inside line a bit. He is once again another driver who started on the medium tyre. And Midnight gets past Jacketer and Xander as well, also there on the alt strat, who hasn't pitted. And going through this corner, Jacketer makes a mistake under the brakes, and in the end he loses out not 1 but I think 2 positions to Yoan as well. And there goes Midnight making the move on the inside of Xander for P5. So we had to try and get through Xander to keep with Midnight over the next few laps. And you see it starts raining, so the rain came much earlier than I thought it would come, at least 10 minutes earlier. As you see, once again I'm going to take the risky inside line to overtake Xander for P6. And as we go along to the next lap, Midnight does not have the DRS. I think he was struggling on his medium tyres as well, so it was a good opportunity to get through. And we passed Midnight to take P5. And the last car on the alt strat ahead of us now is Fusilo, who's been keeping up with the leaders pretty well on those old mediums. So big props to him in doing that. But we go to lap 21. The rain has properly picked up, and the track has become ultra slippery, and we're about 8 seconds off the delta, so it was near enough inter pace on those dry tyres, and we would be quicker on the inters than the old mediums, even if the dries were still quicker. But I think this was the perfect time to come into the pits, and yeah, everyone came in apart from Duncan, who stayed out on the dry tyres, and surprisingly managed to keep the lead. Even after pitting the lap later, even with the spray already starting to kick off the inter tyres. It's amazing he managed to hold that, and Blizzard as well made a big mistake. He lost 5 seconds in turn 2, but we go to lap 24. The podium is only 3 tenths ahead of us, and Fusilo and McKee are battling out here. McKee, I think, has damage on his front wing. We're going to go for the outside line, but the gap, it would have closed, so I decided to back out of it, and they're going to make a bit of contact through turn 1. Facilo forced wide a bit there, and he gets an illegal overtake for that. And on this straight, I'll try and get alongside McKee, but I couldn't get past him. Facilo, he tries to back off and let the position go, but he gets the penalty before McKee could get back past. And we go 3 wide into turn 3. I'll try and get a run on McKee, but he covers off the outside line. I go up the inside, and I get a pretty poor exit. And McKee, though, with his damage, understeers through 5. I get the switchback on 6, and I have the inside for turn 7, which is a massive advantage in all situations, really. And we take P4, and as you see, Facilo, he has his 5-second penalty. And we're on lap 26, the final lap of the race, coming into the final sector here. Just pretty much trying to keep the car on the road. I knew Facilo had the penalty in the pocket. I knew that he could get it removed as well post-race, but time to take the final few corners, just not make any big mistakes, because we're on for a minimum P4 from this race, which was just beyond my expectations, really. Duncan won the race, a big GG to him, and Blizzard for P2, and we're going to come for provisional P3, a minimum P4, which is insane to think about on this level of grid. And it's gave me a massive confidence boost for future races, hopefully a good insight to what I can get in this event. But thanks for watching, everyone, and goodbye.